this is the document, and we're going to skip over the sort of the legal definition of it because we already went through it, and there's nothing really new for us there or anything to really look into because it is the sort of explanation of the law. I'll go through each single paragraph in one video so that it's going to be nice and chopped up and I have enough time to just look at as much as possible. So this is where the report begins, in a sense. So on paragraph 20, on 7th of October 2023, Israel launched its military offensive in Gaza, which included airstrikes and ground operations. The hostilities since then have seen tens of thousands of deaths, including whole extended families of Palestinians in Gaza wiped out, across several generations. From 7th of October 2023 to 31 July 2025, 60,199 Palestinians were killed, of whom 18,430 were children and 9,735 were women. Reportedly, life expectancy on average, both sexes combined, in Gaza decreased from 75.5 years for the year before October 2023 to 40.5 years during the first 12 months of the war, a dramatic decrease of 34.9 years of life expectancy, 46.3%, almost half of the pre-war life expectancy levels. Importantly, this figure does not take into account the indirect effect of the conflict on mortality. For example, deaths due to the inability to access health care or malnutrition. The life expectancy would be lower should such information become available. So that was paragraph 20. And there's quite a lot of sort of fixing to do and things like that. So first of all, the events didn't start on Israel didn't start this military operation. So they omit that fact, and they explain it at some point where they say that this report, or somebody's actually said this somewhere, that they're not looking into this. This is a report on Israel's actions and not on Hamas actions. So that's the sort of what felt to me like an excuse, but and it is an excuse for, because I've read the report, but we'll get into that. So on October 7, 2023, Israel launched its military offensive in Gaza. So it's true, but the military offensive sort of implies that Israel started or launched a military offensive, which is like the start of the war. You can't call it a military offensive because they were first attacked and then they went on the offensive. But that's believe what you may, but there is a thing where you use certain types of language and words so that you make something sound a certain way. So you're trying to sort of use language in a way where you distort the image of it, even if the data is accurate. So it included airstrikes and ground operations, which is relatively true. So Israel started its actual, real offensive inside Gaza much later on, and especially with the ground operations. But the airstrikes, I think, started pretty much immediately. So they started hitting Gazan sites where Hamas is and where rockets were being launched and so on. And then the ground operations were inside Israel, of course, first because they had to clear the area, and then later on, I think weeks later on, I'm not sure, I can't remember exactly, but they began their actual official military offensive into Gaza. The hostilities since then have seen tens of thousands of deaths, including whole extended families of Palestinians in Gaza wiped out across several generations. So there have been, I think, we can all say at least tens of thousands of deaths. We don't know the actual number because the only people who are in charge of the numbers, on the Israeli side, you have numbers from afar. So you have numbers of predicted numbers. Let's say if you target one militant and you know that they're inside their house somewhere, and then you destroy their house or attack them in the house, then you don't know exactly if there are more people in there or even if that militant is still in there, because they're a tunnel. So the numbers are going to be skewed, they're going to be estimates, and they try to verify, but it's impossible to verify that. On the other side, you have Hamas, which is a terrorist organization. So the way a sort of corrupt system works, and Hamas is one of these, is that you have a door that brings people in, and then you have a door that sends them out. And if a corrupt thing walks in, they're gonna do their thing here, and then the corrupt thing is going to walk out. And if it's information, if it's people, this is the sort of the funnel or the filter of the system. So then let's say if some good thing or good person tries to get in there, they're going to have to trick themselves in there, because Hamas is going to say, no, because we don't want you here. You're not going to do exactly what we tell you to do. And we know this of Gazans who have done good things, and then they are eliminated, killed, or silenced in some other way, legs broken, bones broken, as punishment. And Gazans post those videos themselves, and post the videos, and then they post punishments, and then they post sentences handed out, death sentences to people. And this is how the funnel works. So if you want good in there, you need to sneak it in. They need to hide there, lie there, be in danger because it's a war zone, and then leave alive. And that this system itself creates this sort of funnel of corruption. Now, this also means that when you know that there is a doctor somewhere, they are also, unfortunately, Hamas and corrupt. And that's a tough pill to swallow for some, but there are corrupt doctors. There are doctors who work for money, and there are doctors who do whatever they're told from an ideological standpoint. So terrorists, sometimes people who just murder civilians, they might be very highly educated and so on. Education, a title, something like that, it doesn't mean much. It can be like a general sort of instigator. No, it can be like a general sign that somebody is in some way, but there's always exceptions. So just like with Gaza, there at least were good people in Gaza, but Hamas keeps eliminating them. So it's like the more corruption there is, the less good there is, and the more the corruption there is, the easier it is to find the people who aren't corrupt or try not to be corrupt, and that's how the system works. So, but I've personally spoken with two doctors, and they both lied, and one of them was extremely propagandized, and it was actually quite surprising for me, because I thought I was going to maybe get nothing, but I think I sent messages to a few doctors, and two of them replied. One of them was interrupted by a bot profile online, and after that they would say no more. So what they were lying about was that I asked the radicalized doctor, I asked them both the same question, but I asked him if he had ever seen, heard, or treated people with intentionally broken bones. That was my first question. And his reply was that, what, you mean like when Israel bombs people for no reason and then their legs break or something? And of course, at this point, I already know that nobody's a doctor, nobody's that stupid. So they were intentionally being that way. And so I asked them again a little bit more precisely, and they gave me the same litany, same answer, very extreme sort of rhetoric and emotional, and this kind of stuff to try to push you away and make you sort of angry, and well, not angry, but just make you like feel like, okay, I don't want to talk to this person. And I kept pressing, and I told them, like, I understand you're not, you're not a stupid person. You're not an unintelligent man. So I'll try to make this as clear as possible. And I asked them, if you had ever seen, heard, or treated, or heard that anybody was treating a person who had their limbs broken, or they were otherwise physically punished by the Gazan security forces or armed forces in any way, and they never got back to me when I got very specific. Then I got a hold of another doctor, and they were less propagandized. They said that there was one instance of, they first said that no, there's not been a single instance, never, she hadn't heard of anybody treating anybody like that. She hadn't heard of anything like that. Nothing when it comes to like broken limbs or mutilations or anything like that. And she said one shooting at some point occurred during the when the conflict was ongoing, where a person was shot by a security personnel. She didn't know who the shooter was or what group the shooter belonged to, and she didn't, of course, know the person was shot. And she said she didn't know the sort of circumstances, but she knew that it has something to do with like stealing food or something like that. And I was, satisfied that sounded true. But then, of course, I pressed her as well, and she said, no, never anything like that. Didn't hear anything, didn't see anything, didn't do anything. And then that, of course, is a lie, because Hamas has posted for, quite a long time that it's not a secret that they do these things. So that means that out of all the doctors that I spoke to, I think I found like 3 or 4 total. And then I messaged, I think, all of them. And then I was going to message more because I thought I'm not going to get anything from anyone, because who am I? I'm just a random. But then I got the 2 doctors to reply. And I think she was the one that was interrupted. So it was a public conversation. So somebody came in and didn't directly, tell anybody to shut up, but they told me to talk to them, and she never replied back to me. So that is the unfortunate situation, is that all Gazan information is filtered through this lie. So sometimes, of course, you have lies come out with truth, and the facts are used to support this lie. So there might be some facts that slip through that actually harm the lie, and then there might be some truths that sort of, that if you knew the whole truth, they would be really bad, but then they come out in these little pieces where they always blame Israel or someone else. So this is the system. And for fairness, we can go through the Israeli system. So the Israeli system is much more chaotic. So the Hamas system is very, very, very predictable in that sense, where you can never say that everything is a lie, because that's not how lying or anything, works, unless someone is like a pathological liar where they are lying for the intent of lying. So the people in Gaza aren't lying because they are liars. They are lying because their economy is based on this sort of lying system where they get aid, they get a lot of aid, and to get the aid, they need to be victimized. And if Israel leaves them alone, they're not going to be getting, their economy is going to break. It is a bit like slavery in the South. So you had a slave economy in the South, and then if you're going to illegalize slavery, you're going to have a bad time over here to suddenly change your economy completely. Gaza could, slowly do it, and they could, but why would they? Because they are making billions. They have 5-star or had 5-star hotels, at least one. They have luxury restaurants. They have beachfront property, and everything is 2/3 of the Gazans are on aid. So this economy is sort of it's like a system of self-reinforcing is the word that I was looking for before. So the Israeli system is weird, because you have people who do bad things, then you have people who do good things, and there's a lot more holes in the system. So you can't really keep something a secret. Israel is quite small, so there's, I think, around like 10 million. I haven't actually checked that. I've just heard people throw around numbers of 10 million and 12 million, things like that. But let's say around 10 million people. They have free press. They have freedom of movement. uh, equal rights for everybody, and they have free press and things like that. So if Israel makes a mistake, it's going to come out. If they do something good, it's also going to come out. And then, of course, you have the government that has that controls, their own portals of information, and they are trying their best to, bring the good out, and then try to leave the bad in like any mistake or also like unfortunate realities. They are going to be blocked as much as possible, because it's unfortunate that people work in this way, or humanity works in this way, but we need to take care of our information, in a sense, many times shield people from realities, because reality is very tough. I'll just add that one big reason for sort of extremist thought is when there's too much, all kinds of information, and people start believing in, an idea, a fantasy, and then they have to hold on to it because everything is so chaotic, and they try to make that fantasy true, and they start projecting it around. And that's sort of the result of free information with no checks on, let's say, lying and things like that. So after that, let's get back to the document. So, whole extended families of Palestinians wiped out, which is probably true, and I also want to say that it is true in every war, almost every war that there has been in history that hasn't lasted for 30 minutes, in a sense. So there are, unfortunately, whole families that die out because of war. And across several generations is also true, because several can be, I'd say 3 or more is several. So you can have a grandchild, a parent, and then their parent die in war, especially in urban conflict where people live in apartments and things like that. So it's not pretty, for sure. And then we get to this interesting part, which was the tirade of the drawing before, which is from October 7th, 2023 to July 31st, 2025, 60,199 Palestinians were killed. Now, this is a very accurate number. I think anyone would agree. There's no half humans, so this is as precise as you can get. And nobody knows that this number is true. So we don't know if it's higher. We don't know if it's lower. We don't know. It might, with luck, might with luck be exactly what we're looking for. That by pure chance, it's 60,199. But I would say that it's rational to think that no one can know this number this accurately. However, this doesn't say reported, and I think I know why. It doesn't say reported, because then you would have to say reported by whom, in a sense. And why is it so accurate? But saying that this many Palestinians were killed, it doesn't say at least. It doesn't say, estimates. It says that this is a fact. So we're already, we're in the first paragraph after the sort of legal definitions. We are at a number that doesn't make any sense. So I would call this, in the first paragraph, I would call this false information, at least. Then they go on to say that 18,430 were children, for sure, and 9,735 were women. Also, 2 numbers that are completely based on nothing. So there's no way that anybody can know these numbers. What if it's 1 more? What if it's 1 less? What if it's 1,000 more, 1,000 less? We don't really know. So then we have these referrals down here. So I won't focus on these too much. So I won't go on and read them. Number one, there's just too many of them. But I have read a few, and I have looked at a few things because I just want to, make sure just what I'm looking at, and especially if something is really interesting or seems interesting, then I'm of course going to look into it. And this one is from OCHAOPT, so it's I can't remember well, but it's uh, a name you'll or I don't remember what the acronym is, but it's a name you'll be hearing a lot of, or the website is down here. They have reports that they have themselves made, or someone in the UN has made, and then they quote them here, and then you're going to go down this rabbit hole where you sort of look at a report, and then the report has these quotes here, and then you're going to have to read hundreds and hundreds of different pieces of quotes, and then it's going to be never ending. So we can't really do that. So we have to assume that all the information is going to be here mostly, and we have to look at the information that is given to us, and then we can take one step away from this paper and just look at some of this stuff. But we already know that these three numbers are false. So we have started off on a very bad footing. Reportedly, life expectancy on average, both sexes combined in Gaza, decreased from 75.5 years to 40.5 years in the first 12 months of the war. So they use an adjective, dramatic decrease, which I had to look it up a little bit. So this number is quite dramatic for sure. I think it was like a few percentage points for an average war. And then I made a program that would simulate if the average age is 7, because Gaza has, I think, around like 6,000 deaths around per year. So 6,000, the average was 75.5 in my simulation, and then I started adding like how many let's say 15-year-olds need to die so that the life expectancy comes down that much. And I would actually want to look at this one and just see where it is. Life expectancy losses in the Gaza Strip during the period of October to September. So I haven't looked at that, and I don't think I will for now, at least, because it's not really pertinent to what I'm sort of just going through the information here. But it might be interesting to look at it at some point. But in my simulation, it was I think it was around 8,000 15-year-olds need to die to pull down the death, and these are extra deaths above the 6,000 that there are. So 8,000 15-year-olds need to die to pull the life expectancy down. So it was less than I thought. But then when you start adding that, well, not everybody who dies is going to be 15. Then I tried to look at like the average age is 19 in Gaza. So I tried once to simulate just if 19-year-olds keep dying. I think the number went up. I can't remember exactly, but it was around like 10,000 more than that. So 10,000 average aged Gazans needed to die to pull the life expectancy from 75 to 40.5 years. And the thing with Gaza is that most Gazans are children. So there's a population boom in Gaza all the time, or has been for a very, very long time. So most of the people there are children. So the average age is 19. So elsewhere, I didn't actually check what the average age is elsewhere, but it is definitely in like Europe and Far East Asia is definitely higher than 19. So you're going to see, if you see indiscriminate sort of death, it's going to be mostly young people who are, I wouldn't even call them young adults yet. I would call them just like youth age, so teenagers and early 20s and so on. The average militant age was for Hamas was from 16 to 25 around, so it's ish. And then like the youngest are very young teenagers, so 13-year-olds. I think the youngest was 12 years old, but I couldn't verify who that was. But it goes, I would say the age is heavily concentrated in the sort of 20-ish year age, 19. So the average age of a Gazan. And then you have, of course, leadership is probably older. And then you have these children who are from almost toddler age. They are taught to just carry toy weapons and things like that, and real weapons in some cases, and to kill Israelis and Jews. And this is not contested. That's how their society works. So they build them from a very early age. But those are some of the numbers that I played with. I feel that this feels a little excessive, and you can see from here that the deaths, if let's say these are estimates and they just I hate to say forgot to mention, because it's sort of evident from this report that they didn't really forget things, or they were trying to do things like this, where they say things that are very exact when nobody can actually know. So it's a mistake that shouldn't happen, especially at this higher level. So we have to, out of respect for the UN, we have to assume that these are intentional statements. So if 1/3 of the deaths are children, then that is going to pull the age down. But as I mentioned, there are child soldiers, and most Gazans are very young, so you're going to have a lot of militants that are in this group. And then from women, you also have, if not combatants, I don't think there are many combatants, but you have suicide bombers and people who work for Hamas and things like that. And then you can look at these numbers and say that 1/6 is women, and then they try to sort of put them into the innocent category. Around 20,000 are children, and they try to put them in the innocent category, and we are left with around 35,000 men. And then out of those 35,000 men, how many of them are combatants? They don't mention that at all. And with information, with data this accurate to the single digit, they don't mention the combatants, the dead combatants at all at this stage, which is it's sort of I don't know what to call it, but very questionable, at least. So let's go to the next page. I think 31. I'll check that out at some point. So then there is more deaths from indirect deaths, which is interesting because they have these figures. So they know that these people, that they state that they know that these people are killed directly because of combat. And then they leave out the people who have not gotten access to health care and is their inability to access health care and food. And this is a poorly formed sentence because I think, for example, deaths due to the inability to access health care or malnutrition, there should be a period there, because the inability to have malnutrition is actually to have nutrition. So the life expectancy would be lower, but then many times in this document they say things, and then when you use the thing that they say and you start looking at another thing they say, then you start noticing that maybe something is sort of a little bit off, and important things are missing. And it doesn't matter, like, if this document would have been twice the length of what it was, but it was packed full of like important information and details, then that's okay. It's not the I don't think they should worry about the length in a sense, but I feel that they have packed a lot of disinformation into already this first paragraph. And then you have to keep in mind that this is a genocide investigation, so it is not a it is not a prosecution. So this is not like a prosecution case where, let's say somebody murdered someone and then you're trying to make them look as bad as possible so that you can catch them. Or that you're looking for, you're looking for a high conviction rate. So that's not at all how this is supposed to be. This is supposed to be an investigation, an inquest into to see whether or not something is happening. But sort of the theme is in a way is set here. So it makes reading a document very, very fatiguing, very hard work. You know that you can no longer trust anything. And when you read or listen to something that you know that you can't trust, you are doubly checking everything all the time. So, and it also has the danger of you missing something important because you're already in the mindset that things are wrong. But that was the first paragraph. We'll get to the second paragraph in the next video. Goodbye.